It is my privilege to welcome you to this 31st Annual National Character and Leadership Presentation. Our honored guest this morning is Ms. Rosalyn Durant. Ms. Durant is the ESPN Executive Vice President of Programming and Acquisitions. She leads programming, media right deals, ESPN+, ESPN International, Andscape, and ESPNW. She spent the past 3 years in Orlando as Senior Vice President of Disney Springs, Water Parks, and ESPN Wide World of Sports. While at the parks, she oversaw Disney Springs, Walt Disney World shopping, dining, and entertainment destination, both Walt Disney World water parks, the resort's sports operations, including ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex, and the workforce management, operation training, and business transformation teams. She took on the position in March 2020 and played a critical role in helping restart the 2019 to 2020 NBA season at ESPN Wide World of Sports during the pandemic. Before her stint with Disney Parks, she served as Senior Vice President of ESPN's College Networks, overseeing ESPNU, ACC Networks, and Longhorn Network, and was a central member of a cross-functional leadership team that successfully launched the ACC Network. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Rosalyn Durant and our moderator for this session, United States Air Force Academy Cadet Wing Commander, Cadet First Class Abigail Worley.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and ma'am, thank you for coming out.
I am very happy to be here. Let me just say that. I was telling Abby that I accepted the invitation within about 30 seconds of General Clark asking. I didn't know the date. I knew nothing, but I knew I wanted to be here. So I am quite honored.
Well,
I
thank
even
you.
pulled out my velvet jacket for you.
Thank you for taking your time, and
Of course.
I know we all appreciate it.
It's an honor.
To start us off, so we have 97 days until graduation, our first E-class. So
That's
the countdown
exciting.
has started for sure.
That's exciting.
But you began as an ESPN intern.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any advice as we step into these new roles and we're learning lessons? Do you have any advice on how do we learn effectively and how do we take this as a challenge?
But first, it was really interesting listening to the intro and my bio. I'm like, wow, I'm old. Like, I've done a lot of things. And that's what you can boil it all down to. Like, what do? I do a lot of things. I've done a lot of things. I've been at the Walt Disney Company my entire career. The Walt Disney Company owns ESPN. So it will be 25 years this year at the Walt Disney Company, 22 of those with ESPN, as you've heard, and 3 down at Walt Disney World. And I did start as an intern. I'm from small town South Carolina, left small town South Carolina to go to New York for an internship, which is a very different experience. When you're from small town South Carolina, I've had an amazing career and amazing experiences and wonderful people around me. You know, I think there's so many things that come to mind. One, and I mentioned this to you, Abby, that I lived here in the state many years ago during my time at ESPN outside of Denver for 3 years. And one lesson that I love to share with younger people is to enjoy the moment. Okay, like just try to take a deep breath and enjoy the journey. And it's so much easier said than done. I acknowledge that. But when I came back and I flew back to Denver last night, and I'm driving around and I'm realizing all the things that I didn't appreciate when I was here. I think sometimes we're so rushed, right, to accomplish and so rushed to achieve until we sometimes miss the gift of the present and the gift that is right in front of us. So one piece of advice I'd give is as you journey out, and adult, it's overrated by the way, and adult is don't miss the now. Don't miss the connections you're making now. Don't miss the opportunity to enjoy the mountains that I am mesmerized by. Like all of these things are such a critical part of the story that sometimes in our hurry to achieve, we miss it. And I think every part of the experience is a part of the experience that will end up serving you really well. And as we talk more about my career, I'll talk more about this, but I look back now on moments. I look back now on people I met. I look back now on experiences that I had that in the moment seemed like nothing, just something I needed to do. And years later, it's amazing how it comes together and you're like, oh, that person who I randomly met, I need to reach out to them. They can help me with something. Or that experience, that class that I thought was a throwaway, there is something I learned there that helps me here. Like when I started ESPN, I came back after my internship as a marketing coordinator. And I didn't stay very long. I knew I didn't want to work in marketing long term, but as mentioned in the intro, I helped to launch ACC Network. And I think about when we were in the process of developing a network from scratch, from nothing. A part of that is, of course, what are you going to put on it? And how do you market it? And all of a sudden, that experience that I saw was just my entry back into the company. I'm not going to stay in marketing. It's just the door that's open. Helped me, like 15 years later, when I could connect with the classes I took at South Carolina, my marketing classes, and that marketing coordinator position that helped me years later as we thought about how to promote this new network. So I'd say, don't miss it. Don't miss it. Like don't dismiss that connection, that person. Don't dismiss that lesson in that class. You have no idea how it's going to serve you later. So take a deep breath. You're going to be okay, I promise. And take all these little lessons and all of these connections with you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Of
What a great reminder. I have 97 days left here.
97 days.
Enjoying that time and
Not
not
that
just
you're
looking.
counting or anything, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Of course.
So you have been working with Walt Disney companies your entire career.
Entire career.
But while you've been doing that, you've had
Yes.
such a diverse career from
Yes.
college networks to Disney.
Yes.
How has that diversity and what you've experienced taught you about leadership and flexibility and being able to take lessons that you didn't
that's
quite
good.
understand in the moment?
That's good. You know, let me also say that I love TA. And I didn't know TA until we met in the green room right before he came out. But what a amazing message. So I hope you took lots of notes. I told him in the middle of it, I wanted to pull out my phone and start taking notes, but that would have been inappropriate. But one of the things that he talked about was being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and getting used to that discomfort. I don't know how to do this. I don't know what that looks like. That's not what I'm used to. All of those are uncomfortable moments. I think that for me in my career, the best decisions and the most pivotal decisions I've made are the ones where I was just completely uncomfortable. And when you learn to say yes, even though you don't know how to do it. Hey, Ross, will you try this? Okay. I'm from South Carolina. You want me to move to New York? And then I moved to Connecticut. And then I moved to California. Then I moved to Colorado. Then I moved to North Carolina. Then I moved to Florida. It was learning to say yes and figuring out that again, it wouldn't be easy, as TA mentioned, but it was possible to learn a new thing. It's possible. Is it easy? Absolutely not. Is it hard going from working in sports and launching networks to leading operations at Walt Disney World? Was that easy? It was terrifying, and it was hard, but it was possible. And once you realize that it is possible, for me, it's been about saying yes and embracing what I call just a collection of experiences. What can I learn here? Oh, I don't know how to do that. Rosalyn tries, I don't know how to do it. And when I say I don't know how to do it, my answer becomes yes. Why? Because on the other end, I'll know how to do that. And then my question is, what's the next thing I can do that I don't know how to do? I want to be terrified out of my mind. Do you know how to do it? I have no idea what I'm doing. And then what? You figure out how to do it. You know, I'm sure we'll talk at some point about the NBA bubble when I had the opportunity to work on that. Do you know how to create a bubble in the middle of a pandemic? I have no idea what I'm doing. But what do? You learn it. And on the other side, what do you say? Now I know how to do that too. So for me, it's been about learning to say yes and not getting stuck in the discomfort of the unknown. I love to say you don't get, so often people will wait and say, well, I'm scared, or it's uncomfortable. When I'm not quite so scared, I'll say yes. It's not the way it works, y'all. You don't get comfortable waiting. The fear goes away once you do it. Like first you have to take the step and do it. And then you realize, I made it, like I'm still alive. Like the world's still spinning, and you take another step. And then you take another step. And over time, you realize that that weight of the discomfort of the unknown starts to get lighter, and that you actually can learn this too. So that was a lesson for me. And the other is, I love learning under different leaders. All these experiences that I've talked about all of my relocations. The Disney relocation company knows me well. But each one led me to work for a different leader, which is uncomfortable, right? You have someone that you like, you have a leader you like, you have a professor you like, you have whatever it is that you like, and then you go over to someone new who doesn't lead the same way, who doesn't think the same way, who may not even treat you the same way. And the blessing for me was learning part of my leadership style. A big part of my leadership style was picking up little tidbits from each of them. And by the way, not all of them were positive. Some of the experiences weren't the experiences that I would have designed, but I realized even in this, there's something for me to learn. And sometimes it's something to learn is what I won't do as a leader. Why? Because I don't, the way that they do this, the way that that made me feel, the way that they treat people, some of it is good, let me take that. And let me add that to my leadership skills. And when it's not good, let me learn from that and make sure I don't replicate it. So the collection of experiences both taught me just different things. Everyone, you learn something new. You learn something new. You learn marketing. You learn sales. You learn pandemic in a bubble, right? You learn whatever these things are, and you learn under different leaders and how to motivate people, how to bring people together, how to lead a business. And it's that collection that I think helps along the journey.
Thank
Does that make sense?
It does.
It makes sense in my head. I hope it come across the right way.
Yeah, it does. Thank
Okay.
you. You talked about the NBA bubble.
Yes.
So we entered
We have
basic
sports
training.
fans? There we go. Look at all those hands. I love it. Yes.
We entered basic training during COVID. So
Bless
we were
you.
in our little bubble over here
I
at
can't
USAFA
even
class of
imagine doing
24.
basic training in a
But
bubble.
you were the one, I was just being told where to be and where to go, and that's what I did. But you were the one, arranging this and setting it up and making this possible. Can you explain what the bubble was and then how you went through that new process?
Yeah, okay. So for those who aren't familiar with the NBA bubble, it was in the beginning of the pandemic. Let me just go back. So I started at Walt Disney World on March 9th, 2020.
That was my
Maybe not the
high
best,
school.
last day of high, maybe not the best time to start a new job. I moved down to Florida. I started Walt Disney World, and mind you, I moved here, and I mentioned my comfort being uncomfortable. I moved to Florida not knowing a person. I moved to Walt Disney World not knowing a person who worked at Walt Disney World, and I'm coming in this position to lead operations. I've never led operations before. I've led networks at ESPN. I've led negotiations with the leagues. I've never led operations. So there's a lot of new that's happening. Throw into that new a pandemic. So that happened. A week after I started, we shut down Walt Disney World. It never happened in the history of the parks. I remember being the new person that week, and we were making decisions on what do you do? Do we close Walt Disney World? And out of pure ignorance, I raised my hand. I'm like, have we ever closed Walt Disney World before? And the answer was, yeah, for a couple of hours for a hurricane. So we went from being closed for maybe 2 hours for a hurricane to closing Walt Disney World indefinitely. We had no idea when we'd reopen. Fast forward, that's March 9th when I start. 5 weeks later, we're talking to the NBA, who's trying to figure out, because on March 11th, for those of you who are NBA fans, you remember the NBA paused their season in the middle of a basketball game. I see a nod. You remember this, right? Middle of a basketball game, they paused and says, we're done. And the league was trying to figure out how to come back, how to restart. And they didn't have the answers. They didn't have all the answers. They just knew that they needed to finish the season. And they need to figure out a safe way to do it. Again, now when this conversation is happening, it's late April. It's named a pandemic in March. We're still trying to figure out what COVID means and how people contract COVID and how you stay safe in COVID. In the middle of that, they're trying to figure out how do we bring back a sport. And we have a conversation. And I remember saying, I don't know the answer and you don't know the answer. We don't know what we don't know, but I bet we can figure it out together. Here's what I know. I know that there are smart people around me, and there are smart people around you, and if we bring them together, we can figure this out together. None of us have all the answers, but hopefully that collection of people, we can figure this out. That's April, it's late April 2020. By June, by the end of June, we have about 350 NBA players. We have coaches, staff, everyone at Walt Disney World, and they stayed in Walt Disney World until the last team left in what, August? Later, as they finished the NBA season, and the goal was simple. Well, it wasn't simple, it sounds simple, was to finish the season without anyone getting COVID. I mentioned that it's the summer of 2020, when everybody's getting COVID. We wanted to make sure we were protecting the players and that we were able to successfully finish the season. And so where I come in and where everyone else comes in, I remember how complicated that sounds, right? But here's what I knew. I knew that I didn't have all the answers, and I didn't need to have all the answers. At that point, 20 years at ESPN, I knew sports, and I'd had the pleasure of working directly with the NBA before. I said, I know how to negotiate a deal. I can do a deal with the NBA. I can host them and take care of them when they come on property. I have no idea how we're going to keep these players from leaving the bubble. I don't know how we're going to keep them safe from COVID or how we're going to feed these very large men. But there are people around me who know those things. So what do? You call in other experts. I don't have to have all the answers. I called in our person who leads the resorts and said, how do we house them? We called in the folks who lead our food and beverage, said, how do we feed them? Called in our health and safety team and said, how do we think about keeping them safe in the pandemic? One of the lessons that I learned is, one, the importance of being able to move without having 100% of the answers. We couldn't. If we would have waited until everything was perfect, Abby, if we would have waited for everyone to have all the answers, it never would have happened. We didn't have all the answers, and we weren't going to have them. The agreement that we made, we shook hands and said, we're going to move forward based on what we know, and then we'll continue to evolve as new information comes in. And as you'll remember, in summer of 2020, new information kept coming in. And what do? Behind the scenes, we keep talking. You keep evolving. You keep talking. You keep moving. You keep changing. Oh, and in the middle of all of that, there was social unrest, as you'll remember, in the summer of 2020, how that affected the NBA players, things we couldn't have planned for when we talked in April. But you continue to evolve. You continue to adjust. And I'm happy to say, not one player contracted COVID on our watch. Why? Because we took the necessary precautions, we adjusted along the way, and we stayed true to our guiding principles. These are the rules, these are the guiding principles. We stayed true, and it was successful.
Thank you.
And it was fascinating. I have stories later if anyone wants to know.
Well, would you like to share a story now?
Let's think. I've never been tested for COVID so much in all my life as I was during the bubble, because all I can think was, I am not going to be the person who burst the bubble. It's not going to be me. I think about, I'll tell you this, there was so much that was written, and at the beginning of the bubble, there were stories written about, and the food and how we were serving the players. I can tell you that the players were incredibly gracious and kind. And it's such an important note. I remember walking through the resorts. We have 3 resorts where we were hosting the teams, and having players come and open doors for us and repeatedly thank us and say, thank you. Thank you for making this possible. Thank you for taking such good care of us. Thank you for keeping us safe. And we found ways to entertain them. There are videos of the players fishing as we figure out ways to entertain them, because when you're keeping 19, 20, 21-year-old men in this bubble for months on a time, you have to figure out how to not only keep them safe, but keep them entertained and interested. And their gratitude, and there was always separation between our staff and the players, because if there was someone with COVID, you want to make sure it wasn't contracted. They would hold up signs when our housekeepers were in the halls saying, thank you. Everyone's in masks. They were holding up signs to saying, we appreciate you. That's important. It's an important point that I just want to make sure is communicated, that what we did was difficult. What we did was unheard of. We hadn't experienced anything like this before. But wow, what a gracious group of players. It made it all worth it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It was pretty cool.
It's very clear that it wouldn't have been possible without collaboration and fostering healthy relationships, so you knew where to pull resources from.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice on fostering healthy relationships and resources and mentors as you've gone through your career at Disney and even in college?
Yeah, I think there are a few things. I think back to something that TA said, even without taking notes, I remember a lot of the points, but he mentioned seeing you all as people, not just based on your ranking, but as people. And that's an important part to me when I think about relationships. It's about getting to know the human. Like people talk often, and you'll hear people talk about the importance of networking. I don't love the word networking. It feels generic to me. It feels like just an exchange of business cards. Oh, I went to a networking event. I collected 10 cards. For me, it's about building and nurturing meaningful relationships. A relationship is different from a card exchange. It's when you know the human and you say, who are you? It's like when you walk past someone, you say, hey, how are you? And you keep walking Did they answer? I don't know. Like, you didn't really look for an answer. But when you stop and say, no, how are you? And who are you? And get to know the human being that's behind the stripes and behind all of the accolades. That to me is about building relationship. I am naturally curious. I am my mother's child. I love every person. And I love everyone. I want to know them. Like, how can I help you? Who are you? What's your story? And as you come to know people's story, you find so many connection points. Like, you can look around and be like, I have nothing in common with, name the person, until you take 5 minutes to know them and hear their story and realize all of these connections. So for me, I say so much of it is about just that, taking the time to care enough to get out of your own head, thinking about yourself, to think about someone else, and to hear them. No, how are you? How are you? Like, what can I do for you? And to connect person to person. When that happens, there's a different depth. And it is that person, I've had a mentor say before, you build the relationship before you need it. It's hard to call someone a cold call and be like, hey, let me introduce myself and here's what I need from you, versus calling someone you have a relationship with. They know you, they lean in differently for you. They work a little harder for you. So I'd encourage everyone to take the time to build connection. Human to human, honest, vulnerable connection. And in that connection, you also come to know what people's strengths are. And you know your strengths, and then you figure out how this can be mutually beneficial. So when you talk about mentors, I can't even count how many mentors I have. And I have some through different programs that were formal mentor programs. And those have been great, but some of my best mentors have not been through formal programs. They're people I've come to know, and I've come to know enough about them to realize what they have that I don't. And I am not, listen, there is no ego here. I will learn from anyone who's willing to teach me. And as I come to know them, I know what I can learn from them. But it's not selfish. As I come to know them, I also know what they need to know and what I have that I can pour back into them. I think about, you mentioned when I was leading our college networks, I had a mentor in our office. I was living in North Carolina at the time. I reached out to him and said, will you help me? And mind you, he is entry level in the company. At this point, I think I was a senior vice president, and he was like, are you offering to be my mentor? I'm like, yeah, I'll do that too, but I need you to mentor me. Why? Because there was so much that he knew. Whether in social media, that I wasn't comfortable with. I wanted to get better, and I wanted to get comfortable. And I said, and here's what I can teach you if you're willing to learn. So much of it for me with mentorships, with sponsors, is about one, a willingness to acknowledge what you don't know so people can help you, and a willingness to listen when people try to teach you. That part can be hard, right? Because one, we want to be perfect, so you can't say what you don't know. And two, it's hard to hear feedback when someone tells you you're not perfect. I love it. Like, I start with feedback when I'm with my team, and I said, tell me, how can I serve you better? How can I serve you better? Because there's always a way. No one is perfect. Help me understand what I can do differently. I'm not looking for the accolades. I'm not looking for you to say, great job, Rosalyn, I got it. That's not helping me grow. I can't be perfect, but I can always be better. Help me be better. Tell me what would have made this just a little bit better. How could I have helped you just a little more, a little differently, and use all of that to continue to grow? So I'd say that. Make sure it's important to have mentors. It's important to have people who care enough about you to be honest with you. Not to tell you what you want to hear, but to be honest. I always say that the people who tell you what you want to hear are only helping to build your ego. The people who tell you what you need to hear are actually helping you grow. Not grow your ego, but grow as a human.
It's clear that you have constantly placed yourself in situations where you're challenged.
Yes.
And you're not facing those challenges alone.
Yeah.
Is there a particular moment or career choice that has pushed you significantly, like stands out to you? And it could be even a relationship that you had that pushed you more.
I'd say it was probably the move to Walt Disney World, because I'd been at ESPN for 20 years. The only thing I knew, Abby. Like, I interned at ESPN. I finished college, and the next month I was back at ESPN. It's what I knew. I knew the business, I knew the people, and no place is perfect, but I understood the imperfections. And I knew how to get things done. You know where the bodies are buried, you know everything. And there is a comfort that comes with that, right? There's a comfort when you're the person who has the answers, right? So to leave that position and to go to another part of the business where I knew nothing. I knew nothing. I knew my job title was, head of operations for Disney Springs Sports Water Parks. I didn't know where to begin. So, but here's what I knew. I knew that I had a history of learning how to do hard things. So I wasn't intimidated by it. But was it difficult? Of course it's difficult. It's difficult leaving the people who've comforted you for 20 years. The people who picked you back up when you did make a mistake and who knew you well enough to offer you grace. That's comfortable. To leave that, to leave a subject matter where you've become a bit more of an expert, where people reach out to you to interview you because you know something, to go into a place where you know nothing, and you're the leader, and everyone on your team knows more than you do. That is uncomfortable. And it's exactly why I did it, because I wanted that. Like I wanted to not be the smartest person in the room. There is another lesson. If you're the smartest person in the room, leave the room. Get out. Get out as quickly as you can, because you can't learn anything. And it's comfortable because it builds your ego. Oh, yeah, I'm the big guy on campus. But it doesn't grow you. So when you're the smartest person in the room, leave the room. So I came to a place, I'm not suggesting I was the smartest person at ESPN. I wasn't, and I'm not. But I knew enough to know that I needed to get to know something different. What don't I know? What can I learn? How do I stretch my mental muscles? And oh, by the way, how do I learn how to lead in a different way with different group of people? Walt Disney World has over 70,000 employees. How do I learn how to lead in a bigger and a different space? All of that fascinated me. And I went into it saying, okay, Rosalyn, remember, this is going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be hard, and you're not going to know answers, and you're not even going to know who the people are who have the answers. But that's why you came. And coming in and starting from exactly that place to figuring out not only what the job entailed, but coming to understand where I could add value and realizing that my value wasn't in knowing what everyone knew. They didn't need me to know what everyone knew. The people who knew it already knew it. They needed me to bring in a different perspective. I can do that. They needed someone who can think differently. I can do that. They needed someone who had a different set of experiences that would challenge and complement the experiences that they already had. So once I got out of my own way and set my own ego aside and learned that it was okay to ask questions of people on your team, ask questions of your peers. We weren't competing against each other. We were all on the same team. To go to the person to my left and to my right and saying, can you help me? I don't even know what this means. I'm not sure what's asked. Can you double check this for me? To go to my team, and I put myself in a vulnerable position with the team by starting by saying to them, you're the experts. I'm not the expert. I'm here to learn from you. I want to learn enough from you so I can best support you. And when you realize when you do that, people are willing to share. So it was definitely the more challenging of my transitions, but also without a doubt, no comparison, the most beneficial for all those reasons. I taught myself and I taught others that I could and that I was willing to do and try new things.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. As you approach programming decisions, designing teams, how do you appreciate and create teams that bring diverse perspectives and are willing to work together and challenge each other?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to break that down into that question to a few different responses. One, how do you get teams to work together? First thing I do is help them understand we're all on the same team. It is important, especially in corporate, because it's easy to compete as everyone is looking for roles and looking for growth, to start by saying, that's not how we win. That's not how we win. We don't win that way, and you're not looking at everyone in the room around you. These are not your competitors. These are your teammates. If they're not successful, you're not successful. So part of how I judge you and measure you and grade you and hold you accountable is not just on what you do, but it's on how they're doing. So what does that mean? That means you're responsible. You're also responsible for your sisters and your brothers to your left and your right. You start there, and it just starts. So let's take the rest of that competition out of the equation. There's no room for that, not on my team. No room for that on my team. Then I set an expectation of we learn and we're better by having different perspectives. I will say to my team, if you're thinking like I am, we're missing out. I know how to think like me. I already have these thoughts, got this covered. What I need is, what is your perspective? Because you're going to offer something that I can't offer. Why? Because your lived experiences are different than mine. I'm not intimidated by that. I need that. I need it. And the audience that we're looking to serve at ESPN are sports fans. Sports fans don't all think like me. They don't all look like me. So I can't pretend to best serve them if I'm only serving them what I think is best. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? So we start from a place of creating space for challenge. We'll have a conversation, and if I see too many people nodding with me, that's a problem. That's when I challenge and say, okay, I got it. But what could go wrong here? What am I missing? I need someone to tell me. Give me, for ha-has, give me a contrarian point of view. What are we missing? And then once you open the door and say it's okay to think differently, you notice that people are willing to contribute. And when people offer ideas that even make you uncomfortable, the first thing I do is say thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to say that. Thank you for saying what no one else would say. I appreciate it. Now here's what I've heard from everyone. You know, our company president has this philosophy on discuss, debate, decide, align, okay? The discussion is I have to first bring it to the table. The debate, I want every opinion. Challenge me all day long. Then there's a decision. My job as a leader to decide. I'm going to take everything that I've heard, all of these different perspectives, and use it to try to make the most informed decision. And once a decision is made, then we all get in alignment, and we move forward. Doesn't mean that you can do what everyone wants you to. It's impossible. If you have 10 people, you have 10 different opinions. But if people feel like your decision was informed and that they were heard, they are respected more, and it's easier to get in that position of alignment. So I set an expectation by saying out loud to my team, here's who we are. Here's how we operate. We're all on the same team. Leave all the other stuff behind. You're responsible for yourself and for your teammates around you. I want to hear, and we're in the room, if I don't hear a certain voice, I'm going to reach out and say, I haven't heard from you. What do you think? And just invite more people into the conversation and truly use it. One thing you have to be careful of as a leader, it's easy to say, we welcome all opinions, and then you secretly have a decision made in the back of your mind. But to truly be open and say, I may have an opinion, but I don't have a decision until we have the time for this discussion debate. Why? Because I haven't thought all the thoughts. I need all of your opinions too. And then you make a decision. When people realize that's your way, one, it spreads and more people want to come in and share. And you only have to say it once or twice before it's realized that you mean it. And when they realize you mean it, that you respect them enough to acknowledge them as individuals with different perspectives, and you care enough about what they have to say to ask for it, to encourage them to challenge you, and to actually use what they say, it changes the culture.
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome, Abby.
Have you ever been in a situation, it's one thing to challenge yourself.
Yes.
Have you ever been in a situation where you felt the need to challenge someone else, whether they wanted that challenge or not?
All the time. And I think there are a couple of things that come to mind for me. One is challenging up, because you have to challenge in all directions. And I think some of the best leaders are leaders who are open to not only feedback, but to truly different positions and thoughts. I think about some conversations that I've had with my leaders, whether it's our current company president or previous leaders, where there's a way to do it respectfully. Say, are you open to a different opinion? I want to give you something else to think about. Or, I hear you, but here's something else we have to make sure that we consider as part of it. For me, it's not about the if you challenge. If I believe it, I'm going to challenge it, or I'm going to at least put another perspective out there. It's how you do it. It'll always be respectful, and it'll always be well-intentioned. It can't be about me. It can't be about me making a point. It has to be about what's best for the business. And I find that if everyone understands what your intentions are, then my intentions are simply to do what's best for the business. If you start from that place, and I know that we're on the same page, because your job, your goal is to do what's best for the business. My goal is to do what's best for the business. So now you don't have to question where it's coming from. And if you start from there and said, I think we're aligned that here's our objective. Is that right? Okay. Based on that, I have another thought, or here's something I believe we're missing. When they know where it's coming from, it's easier to be received. I start there. The other, with a challenge, is let's just talk about feedback in general. Feedback can be hard. And it can be hard not only to hear it, it can be hard to give it. When you know that the person on the other end is going to get a little tight or is going to disagree with it because they don't like it, it can be hard, which makes it way too easy for leaders to avoid giving feedback. Why? Because I don't even want to deal with the wrath of what's going to come when I say this. But when you don't receive the feedback, it's not that there isn't an opportunity for improvement, it's just that you're not being told, which allows you to continue with behavior that's not best for you and that's not best for the business. So I feel the responsibility and the accountability as a leader to help you be best, right? But here's how I think about doing it. One is that same level set to make sure we're on the same page. Abby, what are your aspirations? My job is to help you reach that goal. So then when I give feedback, I can start by, and it's not, some people will say, oh, you got to start with positive and then give constructive. People do it in different ways. My thinking is that you can accomplish both. Abby, I think you're doing a great job. Here are a few areas that I see that I think are really strong and would suggest you continue. I'm going to give you specific examples so you know what I believe you should continue and replicate. Now, there are a few areas that I believe that if you do differently or if you improve, it will help you accomplish that goal that you've shared with me. Remember, my job is to help you reach your goal. There are a few areas that can help you better reach your goal. What now I can tell you, because then when I share them, your shoulders can come down a bit because you understand my intention is not about hurting your feelings, even if it's difficult to hear. My intention is to help you accomplish what you've shared is your goal. Does that make sense? So then it's less of the what or the if. I have a responsibility to you to help you be better. It's the how. Because if you can't receive it, then it's not effective and it's not productive. So I have to find the right way to position it, aligning it with your goals and your objectives so you can best receive it.
Wow. Truly caring for the individual that you're giving feedback to.
Absolutely. And every individual is different.
Yes.
Every individual is different. There are some people on my team who the best way to give it to them, give it to them straight. And there are some people, at the thought of feedback, you watch them tense up and they know they have to take a different approach so they can come down and they can receive it and they can hear it. There's some folks who I know I'm going to give feedback and immediately they're going to be like, thank you, that was awesome. I'm going to change tomorrow and hear the few things. There are a couple of people I think about who I know will hear it and they're going to need 2 days to just sit with it and to get over the fact that I just told them they're not perfect, and then they're going to come back and be like, okay, you're right. What do we do about it? But every person is different, and I don't try to make them all the same. I accept that each human being comes with their own stuff. I come with my stuff, you come with your stuff. Each individual comes with their own stuff, and I give you space to be who you are, but it doesn't lessen my responsibility to still give you what you need.
Well, ma'am, I think I've taken enough of your time. I would love to open it up to the floor for questions. Thank you.
Tell me who you are. Tell me your name.
My name is Luke Walt.
Hi, Luke.
I
saw you engaged there, Luke. I knew you were going to ask a question. I saw the head nodding. I said, Luke is locked in. Okay.
Because I feel like there's so many things to hear about with ESPN these days, and I think like with the layoffs that happened at ESPN, and then also the acquisition of like Pat McAfee,
Yeah.
investment in the college football playoff, like how do you as a leader deal with all this adversity
Yep.
coming at you and these decisions that are being made to transferring content?
It's an excellent question. I'd say a few things. One is when you are successful, people pay more attention. So there's a lot that we've gone through at ESPN that every other company has gone through. We get more attention because we're ESPN. I think of times when people will throw rocks at the Walt Disney Company, and you look at it and say, do you know how many other companies were unfortunately in a position of doing layoffs the exact same time we were? But where was the attention? So you realize that with our position of leadership position, there is a different attention that's paid to it. We accept that. It's part of being big and part of being successful and who we are. So you have to remember that and not get too high or too low off of the media and what people say when you truly believe that what you're doing is necessary for the business, even if it's hard. You know, a lot of it is in taking the time with the team to explain the why behind the what, so they can understand it and understand why we are making decisions that may be hard in the moment, but we have to play a long game here, and that's best for the business long term. I'll also say, Luke, that part of our responsibility is to continue to grow. You're going to continue to grow. We want to continue to attract new fans. Our mission at ESPN is simple: is to serve sports fans, period, anytime and anywhere. In order to do that, how you serve sports fans today is different from how we served sports fans when I started in 1999. It's different from how we served sports fans even 5 years ago. And what the sports fan is looking for is different. How people engage is different. Think Pat McAfee, think ESPN Bet. There's so much that the fan expects and looks for, and how the fan engages and how they fan now is different than it was before. It forces us to go into new places. When you go into new places, if you're going to truly look to grow and truly look to innovate, you have to push outside of what is comfortable. You have to push outside of what is familiar. And when you push outside, sometimes you're going to get criticism. Why? Because it's unfamiliar. Sometimes you're going to have hiccups, and sometimes you're going to trip. You're going to trip up. How can you not when you're doing something new? When is the last time you tried a new sport, a new name it, new anything, and there weren't hiccups? So there wasn't, or it's not always perfect every step of the way. But I think we have to come back and stay centered in who are we here to serve? Why did we make the decision? And then how do we explain, learn from your mistakes, learn fast, learn from your mistakes, learn quickly, learn from it, talk about it, and make sure you don't repeat that mistake, and then continue to push the envelope. And one thing that it should be expected, we're going to continue to push the envelope. Why? Because innovation is part of our DNA. It's what we do. Serving sports fans is what we do. What the fan expects of us continues to evolve, which means we have to continue to evolve. And when we do that, sometimes you're going to get it right. Sometimes you'll have lessons along the way. You learn from them, and you keep pushing further and further. But overall, I was having a conversation with someone earlier, and as I mentioned to Abby, I've only worked here at the Walt Disney Company. And the reason why I've been here for almost 25 years is I believe in this company. So do we always get it right? We don't. Why? No one does. Name one person who always gets it right. Name one company that always gets it right. It doesn't exist. But I appreciate the aspiration and the willingness to innovate, the willingness to admit when we get it wrong. That's what I respect, and what keeps me here.
Hi, ma'am. My name is Cadet Second Class Maddie Olson, and my question for you is, what has your experience been as a female in a typically male-dominated industry such as sports, and what advice do you have for us female cadets who are going to become leaders in a male-dominated industry as well?
Yes, I was waiting for that one. Good. So first piece of advice I'd give is to pull your shoulders back and hold your head high and remember that you belong. You have as much right to be here as anyone else. I am very grateful for having a very strong family and a strong father, a strong mother. And I remember my daddy saying, if they can do it, why can't you? You can do anything they can do. And I just remember just pulling my shoulders back. And I said I was smart enough or brave enough or crazy enough to believe him and ask myself the question repeatedly, why not me? Like, why not me? When I always say a few things. One, it is important, regardless of the package that you come in, to be great at what you do. TA just talked about the power of hard work. I can do that. The willingness to learn from your mistakes, to admit what you don't know, to learn from the people around you. I can do that. It doesn't matter the package that I come in. I am a female. I am a black female. I wear my hair in braids. This is who I am, and all of those things don't impact how I negotiate deals. Didn't impact how we worked with the NBA bubble. So I focus on what's most important. How has it been as a female? Few things. One, I sometimes tell people I don't really know any other way. Like, so I've been always. So are there times when it's obvious that people around aren't used to it. Listen, in the job that I work, that I'm in, is less internal, it's been more external. We have the person who leads our partnerships with the NBA, with the NFL, is a female at ESPN. Our CFO is a female at ESPN. We have women who are doing wonderful things. Our CMO, our head of marketing, is another woman. Our head of human resources is another woman. Our president, when you look around his table, over half of the people around his table are female. So I feel real good at ESPN being a woman and not believing that the package that I come in is getting in the way of the impact that I can have. We've made progress. It didn't look that way when I started 25 years ago, but I've watched the company be intentional about changing it, be intentional about pushing and asking the questions. And now that I'm in the seat, I try to do the same. Ask the questions to push if we're making hiring decisions, making promotion decisions, and saying, well, why not her? Why not? Help me understand. Why not? Why couldn't she do it? You know? So I think it's important, and it has been important for us to be, we were fortunate to have people in the room who asked those questions and pushed enough. Now, when I mention it's more external, 25 years in, there's still partners that we work with. There are still rooms that I walk in, and there is no one who looks like us. There is no woman in the room. There are rooms that I walk in, there's no person of color in the room, and it disappoints me. And I say, really? It's 2024. What are we doing here? Really? And I just think repeatedly, I hope that my presence and the presence of my peers who I've mentioned, going not only being at the table, but being successful at the table and having an impact at the table, that hopefully our partners see that and say, why couldn't our room look like this? Maybe we need to be more open with our next hire decision, our next promotion decision, and not assume that because it's football, because it's sport, that it has to look a certain way. Because we prove that it doesn't matter. It's about what you know, how you get things done, and how you treat people, and that is not dependent on your gender.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, hi.
Sorry. Hello, ma'am. My name's Emily Molina. I'm from Wake Forest University. And first of all, thank you for sharing your insights today with us. My question pertains to how you highlight the value of gratitude in your interactions, such as those with the athletes that you've worked with, as well as when people voice their opinions that may be challenging. And so I was wondering how you suggest leaders can help others develop and practice the value of gratitude when it's such an intrinsically motivated mindset.
I love any topic on gratitude. You know, right now, in fact, with my team, Disney has a global recognition week that is all about gratitude, all about saying thank you, all about saying job well done. It's who I am, is what I do. Like I keep a gratitude journal, and it speaks to it, and I write in it every day. I'm traveling. When I packed yesterday to come here, I packed my gratitude journal because I don't want to miss the opportunity to pause and notice the people who helped me, the people along the way who, whether it's big things or small things. So gratitude is really, really important to me. And it's important as a leader that I push that down to my leadership team. People are, as you've mentioned, are motivated by one, recognition, right, of the person. There are people behind the work that gets done. I said it's not just the producer, the person who's produced, it's the human. There's a person who made a decision to show up today, who made a choice to dedicate their time and be with us in the company instead of being someplace else. They made a choice to be with us. And every chance I get, I say, thank you. I sent a note to my team yesterday following up on a meeting that we had, and I ended it with, I appreciate you. I am grateful that you're here. I'm grateful for what you do. It goes back to not missing the moments. It's important, and if you say, what do you share? I'd share not missing the moments and not being so caught up with, and I don't think it's intentional. I think we are so busy here that you move from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. And the more that we can be present in the moment to see what's happening in this thing that we're in, whatever it is, and who's around and who's a part of it and who's influencing it, and just hit the pause button long enough to say, Thank you for that. Thank you for offering that opinion. Thank you for helping me with that project. Thank you for carrying that box for me. Thank you. I appreciate you. You know what it does? It causes them to do it more. And it's contagious. It's contagious that they know how it made them feel, so they're more likely to share gratitude. And when they realize what it is that you recognize, they're going to repeat that behavior. And what do other people see when they see good behavior? They replicate it. And it's like this ripple effect that goes around. I sincerely believe, and maybe I'm the ultimate optimist, I believe that we all have the ability in our own way to help change the world. Whether that's for better or for worse, I choose good. I choose good, I choose gratitude. And I try to surround myself with people who are of similar mind. I want to be careful, I say like-minded, because I try not to surround myself with just people who think like me, but who are similar in that way. And as a leader, I understand the incredible position that I hold, that people pay attention to what I do and are more likely to repeat it. So I'm very thoughtful about what those actions are, and gratitude is one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question.
That's because I talk too long. If I was just not be so long, I'm sorry.
Hello, ma'am. I'm
Hi.
Cadet Second Class Garrett Burton. And I know in your bio it mentioned head of ESPN International, working with that.
Yes.
So how have you balanced the theme of this NCLS about empowering the human condition, valuing cultures, and with the first question about continuing to grow with business in China? All sports have kind of grappled with that and their human rights concerns. So how have you grappled with those hard decisions?
Oh, it's so good. So we have a large international team on the programming side, on the production side. For us, it's about authentic representation. So what we don't want to do is be the same every place. We acknowledge that there are cultural differences, that as a company we do our best. Again, doesn't mean we always get it right, but we do our best to embrace and to reflect. So if we think about hiring decisions, hiring people behind the scenes and in front of the scenes who understand the local culture, who reflect the local culture, and not pretend that the way that we do things here is the way that it works everywhere, but who can keep us honest and say, I understand the intention, but here's how that translates here. It's been little things with language choices, not in word choices, I should say. As we think of how we market certain content, a word may mean one thing here in beautiful Colorado Springs. It'll mean something different in Mexico City, where we have another office. So making sure that we trust the people who are local to keep us honest and authentic, so we are not only not offensive, but where we're respectful of the culture and what's most important there. And I don't pretend that we have it figured out in all of the countries and all of the spaces outside of the U.S. yet. But as we continue to grow, we are a global company. We do see additional opportunity and just want to find the right ways to engage. And it won't look the same way. How we engage in one country, even outside the U.S., there's not an international model. We don't have an international model. We have a global business, and there are different models in different markets and regions based on what's relevant there.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Durant and Cadet Worley, thank you so much for sharing your conversation with us this morning. Ms. Durant, thank you again for your time today. Experiences and perspectives truly speak to how we can embrace culture and empower people. On behalf of the United States Air Force Academy and our National Character and Leadership Symposium, please accept this token of our gratitude. The base of the gift is made out of marble from our terrazzo. This is significant to us because all cadets have to run the marble strips during their freshman year. We hope you look onto this and remember your NCOS experience fondly.